Good morning, everybody. KT here with Wise Images Photography. And if this is your first time ever coming to my channel, I want to say welcome. We like to go on fun-filled adventures. We like to learn about nature and photography. So if this sounds like something you'd like, definitely consider subscribing. But let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Now, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about 5 beginner tips to help you spot wildlife. Now, this honestly could go in a lot of different directions, but like I said, I'm just gonna do 5 basic beginner tips just to get you started. And these are basically laying the foundation to help you with trying to find wildlife. So let's get going. The first thing is open up your senses. It may sound kind of a little bit cliche, but become one with nature. Honestly, we are bombarded with so much technology and advertising and likes and just everything, right? With all the electronics. And then even in our day-to-day lives with, work and stuff like that, it's always more and more and more and more and more. So when you're out in nature, it's time to just kind of and just sit there and listen and look and just feel what's all going around you. And so that would be my first tip, is open up your senses. Try to become aware of all the surroundings. Next up is slow down. When you're walking through the woods, try not to, flat foot. When you're walking through the woods, you want to try to roll your foot. Try to walk as quietly as you possibly can. And the reason why you want to walk a little bit slower is because if you're going at a fast pace, you do tend to miss things. Another thing that you might want to go ahead and do is find a spot to just sit down. Sit down right by the water, like I am right now. Maybe sit down on the bank. Maybe if you're walking through the woods and you see a place where there's an animal trail, sit by that or sit near that animal trail, because maybe an animal will eventually come through. Maybe sit by an open pasture and just sit quietly and try not to make any disturbance. You will be surprised at how many things will appear when you sit still. And me personally, I do have a lot of problems with trying to sit still. But anyways, if you're out there hiking, and let's say, for example, you guys are hiking with a bunch of friends, make sure that you're not hooping and hollering. Sometimes when I go to parks, I'll hear a group like they are probably a quarter mile away from me, and I hear them coming, and I'm like going, yeah, we have managed to scare every single animal away at this point. So whenever you're walking through the woods, either lower your voice, or as I like to say, shut your gator, which means basically just be quiet. Now, when I'm not in the woods, I have a really hard time with this, and I'm very loud, and my friends will tell you this. But when I'm in the woods, I like to be quiet because I'm trying to make sure that I don't make too much of a disturbance. Now, when I'm out and I'm hiking with others and I do hear something or see something, I will normally tend to go over to hand motion. So I'll kind of be like, hold, and then I'll kind of point where it's at. And I try not to make the movements too big, because even the movements can, flag an animal that you're there, because they'll see that movement and then they'll flee. But I kind of figure that's a little bit better than big hand gestures of trying to point where it's at, and also, just verbally saying something and then they hear my voice and then they take off. Now, if I'm in a location that is noisy as all get out and the animals do not seem to be like, whatever, we could care less about all the sounds that are going on out here, then I totally would be like, bird, 2 o'clock, bird, you're 12 o'clock, whatever it is, I would definitely call the animal out. Hit that like button if you think we all should start to kind of slow down a little bit. Next up is listen for sounds. When you walk quietly or sit still and you're listening for those sounds of nature, you're more apt to hear things. Do you hear a bird call in the distance? Which direction is it coming from? Are you on water? Water will make sounds travel and carry. So is that affecting which direction the animal might be? Did you hear a twig branch break? And I just caught 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 white ibis were flying down in that direction. And see what I mean? And I'm gonna get to that point in a second about why my eyes just totally darted off and saw something, right? Where was I? Hang on, let me look at my notes. Do you hear wrestling? Do you hear rustling in the leaves? All these sounds should be alerting your eyes to the fact that something is around and in the area. Which leads us into our fourth tip, which is use your eyes. Once you hear something, you're going to look in that particular direction to see if you found something or if you can see something. Part of your senses is keeping your eyes and your ears and everything open, but also making sure that you're looking around while you're out there and you're hiking. I know that I told you guys that we need to slow down because our society is just really on a super fast track all the time. And yes, slowing down is good, but when you're hiking, I want you to constantly to kind of be looking, right? Paying attention. There I go. I caught a squirrel out of the corner of my eye. Talking about it is making me be more in depth to what I'm trying to teach you guys and show you guys here today. So needless to say, you don't want to be frantic when you are out and about. So it's not like, you're constantly looking like this, right? It's more of a subtle kind of thing. You're just kind of looking up, you're looking out, you're using your peripheral visions. The kind of things that you're looking for would be like, all of a sudden, here I am in my peripheral, I saw those 7 white ibises and it caught my eye. I looked over there, right? So that would be one thing that you're gonna be looking at. Maybe you're looking at trees, and are the trees moving? Yeah, maybe there's wind on them, but is it moving a little bit more than it usually is moving? That would possibly indicate that maybe there's some type of wildlife in there. Looking at the water, and do you see any kind of ripples there? Do you see a wake going off of something? And this brings me to the last tip for you all for today in being able to spot wildlife or find wildlife is look for what's out of place. When you look at this clip that I'm showing you, you notice that on the far left-hand side, everything is pretty much green, but then all of a sudden you see this black spot in the middle of all this greenery. That looks out of place, and that would be a gator. So that is how I was able to go ahead and spot this particular animal, is because the gator sticks out like a sore thumb. Look at this gallinule in the water. When you look at the way the water is around the gallinule, it's got one type of pattern. But if you notice, as the gallinule is moving through the water, that there's a little bit of a wake going off of the bird. So that kind of alerts you to something going on. So whenever I'm someplace, I always kind of look for what looks different. I mean, the other day, I didn't have my camera, so I don't have any clips of it, but the other day I was sitting there and I was looking across the bank, and it's all green across the bank basically, but then there was a blueness all of a sudden. It was a little blue heron. Not only was he there and he was a different colored pattern, but then also too, he was kind of moving his head back and forth like this. So that's a good way for you to see animals, is by combining all of these techniques that I've given you so that you can go ahead and spot that wildlife. And this also works at nighttime too. If you sit at night and you allow your night vision to happen, you would be amazed at what kind of animals you can see. If you found these tips helpful and you think these tips are gonna help you, make sure you hit that like button so that way I know it helps you, and also go ahead and make sure you hit that like button so others know that this helped you as well. I want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. I really greatly appreciate it. If you like going on fun-filled adventures and learning about nature and photography, consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that notification button so that way you all do not miss any future episodes. Go ahead and tell me, which techniques do you already use and which ones are you looking forward to trying out? Go ahead and drop that in the comment section below, because I want to hear what is helping you all out. Remember, you are awesome. Have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you later, alligator.